Hey, what's up everyone? Dr. Stein here from Straight Ahead Chiropractic, and I want to talk to you about everybody's favorite subject, poop. Let's talk a little bit of crap. So, funny little side note, my wife Sandy saw this whiteboard a few minutes ago, and she's like, do you really need to do another conversation or another video on poop? And my answer to that question is absolutely. Why absolutely? Well, because there's lots of people whose kiddos are struggling, and let's be honest, there's lots of adults that are struggling with constipation and poop issues. And so I want to get the message out. I want to have that conversation. And it seems like it's what we talk about a lot in the office. I would say 25-30% of the kiddos that we see in our office have some kind of GI dysregulation, constipation issues, colic, reflux, and those types of things. And just yesterday in the morning, I'm sure it happened more, but four consecutive people had come in and said they'd noticed significant change. One, actually, wife brought in their baby on just, I think, his second visit. This poor little guy has only been pooping like once a week. And mom brought him in and said, hey, my husband wants to know if you can slow him down a little bit because now he's just going a lot. And I said, hey, sorry, but he was just full of crap. And that's the reality. He was congested and full of poop, and now his system is clearing that out. And there's no down regulation on that valve. It's once that stuff needs to come out, it needs to come out. So one question I want to answer is, how often should my kid poop? What's normal? What is the average? What is the ideal for kids to have bowel movements? And the answer to that is it should happen at least once a day. That changes. Infants, it should be multiple times a day. Toddlers, it should be a couple times a day. And then as we age, once a day is healthy. You can go more than once a day, and you can occasionally skip a day, but you should be having bowel movements. Your kids should be having bowel movements. They should be having them once a day. And so when kiddos aren't doing that, which we know there are a lot of kids that are congested, constipated, and really struggling, if you can't clear that out, a couple of things happen. One, it leads to toxicity, because the toxins, our GI tract is supposed to clear the waste out. Well, that waste is supposed to be eliminated, and if it's not eliminated, it can reabsorb, or it can cause some stagnancy and toxicity. One area we see that, this is super nasty and gross, but one area we see that is the skin. Poop, toxins in our system, our body is super resilient. So any toxins in our system are going to find their way out. And one of the ways they find their way out, one way we know that there's an unhealthy GI tract oftentimes is skin issues, eczema, rashes, and those types of things. And so it'll find its way out. The other thing that it leads to is malabsorption. Constipated kids often have malabsorption. And so with the malabsorption, just think of they're full of poop. It's blocking the portals for nutrients to get into the system. It's all clogged and congested. And so the good nutrients aren't able to get in. Sometimes that'll even lead to, which sounds kind of funny, constipation can actually even cause a little bit of diarrhea, because there's so much impacted bowel that the stuff that's able to get through is very loose and gets squeezed out. I know, I told you it's kind of gross, but that can even lead to intermittent diarrhea, which is also a GI issue. And so there's three approaches. There's three standard primary approaches. I'll actually even say there's one standard approach. The first one, traditional medicine. Go to your pediatrician, go to your medical doctor, have issues of constipation. And typically what we hear and what we see is a couple of different options. They will say, well, it's normal, or it's common. A lot of kids deal with it. They'll outgrow it. They'll get over it, or they'll treat it by means of Miralax or mineral oil or some kind of laxative to try and push the poop through the system. That obviously begs the question of, well, why is it there? That's not an approach that's addressing the constipation per se. It's the symptom of the constipation. It's basically saying, well, let's just push everything through, but it doesn't answer the question of why is it stuck in the first place. The next approach, the secondary approach, is where we have a lot of people come into our office and where they find us. They've tried the conventional, traditional route. They've tried the Miralax. They've been on Miralax. We've had lots of kiddos that have been on Miralax for multiple years, every single day, that have been able to get off of Miralax and have regular bowel movements on a daily basis. More on that later, or in another topic or conversation. But where we see a lot of people is they've tried that route, they don't like that route, it hasn't worked for them, it wasn't been working, or it just doesn't fall in line with their paradigm or their philosophy of health. So they try the natural route. They change their diet, they make all of the big hard decisions to go dairy-free, gluten-free, which I'm not saying any of us should have dairy or we should have gluten. I'm saying those are good changes to make in the first place, but they still are struggling. They see a little bit of improvement. Some stuff changes, but there's still some struggle. They're still stuck, not able to break free of that cycle. And so what ends up happening is then they do more supplementation and more probiotics. And so what I want to say kind of philosophically is that much different than Miralax? Yes, it's natural. Don't lynch me. Don't send me a hate message or anything like that. Yes, it's natural. But what I mean by that is the paradigm, the thought process is it still begs the question, why is it there in the first place? You can do the diets and the juices and you can do eat more cleanly and you can do the probiotics, but for most of those families, they see some improvement, but not a ton of improvement. It's just a little bit better. And so the question is, for example, like with probiotics, a lot of families will say, well, maybe we should just do a probiotic, or we've been doing this probiotic. Do you have a better recommendation for a probiotic? And what I want to say is probiotics aren't a quick fix for constipation. Yes, they can rebuild your gut flora. Yes, they can help with immune function, but you still have to answer the question of why would they even need a probiotic for something that they should already internally have? Our body should already have probiotics in it, unless it's been depleted by excessive antibiotic use or high stress levels. Our microbiome should be okay. And so that still begs the question of why are we adding to a system that's deficient? Or maybe it's not even deficient, it's just insufficient. And so that gives the third option. Number 3 is looking at neurologic root causes. And so with that said, we see kiddos who just are unable to regulate their nervous system or regulate their GI tract, which is controlled and governed through the central nervous system. Stress, so we know in utero stress, if mom is stressed out while pregnant, that cortisol will pass to baby. And then we have labor and delivery stress. Then we have the current stress of culture and society right now. And then maybe a C-section, maybe a failure to latch, not breastfeeding well, formula, introduction of rice cereal. And hey, this isn't me pointing a finger and saying, all of it, poo-poo on all this stuff, pun intended. But what I want to say is that this stress stacks up. And as stress stacks up, it creates a tension where our nervous system gets stuck. We call that sympathetic dominance. The big fancy chiropractic term for that is subluxation. It just means stress is stuck in our system. Well, think about when you're in a stress state. Your GI tract is one of the first things that go, right? Your mood behavior changes, but then also your stomach changes, the way you digest food. It's just because we're in survival mode, and when we get in that mode, the blood and energy and effort doesn't need to go to our GI tract to digest food. It needs to go elsewhere to keep us alive and to manage. And so we see these kiddos born into a stress state that are having struggles with constipation, and they're going these routes of medicine and nutrition. And I'm not, again, poo-pooing those things and saying that those are bad in and of themselves, but a lot of times they're just not getting to the answer or the cause because they're not diving deep enough into where is that stress. Stress in your system causes you to get stuck. Stress in your central nervous system, stress in your spine, subluxation causes things to get stuck. Well, there you have it. What is constipation? It's poop that's stuck. It's a motility issue. Things aren't moving well because things aren't moving well. The spine's not moving well, the nervous system's not moving well, the GI tract's not moving well. And so what chiropractic does is it comes along and it says, where's the dysregulation happening? Where's the tension in the spine possibly causing tension in the nervous system? Where's that stress stuck? How can we unravel that stress so that we're not treating the constipation and we're not just pushing a poop button to make your kid go more frequently, but we're actually regulating their system so that it can function naturally, normally in the rhythms of life like it's supposed to, because it's natural for kids to go poop every day. It's natural for adults to go poop every day. And if they're not, rather than looking just at external means of help, maybe we can look more internally and say, well, where's that problem coming from in the first place? If you would like more information, if you want to have a conversation, if you want to talk a little crap with us, we're here to help any way we can. All right, thanks so much. Hope you're straight ahead.